In this video, I'm going to be installing and setting up this RC drift gyro from AGFRC. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy and this is Roadside RC. You'll tend to find me drifting and bashing and crawling and racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. And I have been on a quest to build a very budget-oriented RC drift car, rear-wheel drive RC drift car to be specific. And that's led me down a path of trying to look at some relatively more inexpensive gyros. I tend to run the Yokomo DP302 V4 or the Futaba GYD450. Both of those are in that $80-ish to $90 range. And so we're looking at some gyros that are much cheaper than that. So this is the AGFRC gyro. It makes me a little concerned since it labels itself as a drag racing gyro, but they say that it is also good for drifting, so we are going to put that to the test. This is the GY01. It has a 3.7 to 8.4 volt operating range, and it is in pretty nice compact aluminum case that should be able to be mounted just about anywhere on your chassis and make it work. Now I'm going to be setting it up with the AGFRC servo, so hopefully that will work together just nicely. On the other hand, I am pairing it to a Dumbo controller, which is definitely not what you would normally see people drifting with. And so we're going to see if that causes us any concerns as we're putting it together. However, the general idea of the setup should be the same for you, no matter what servo and controller setup you're using. So let's get it started. And the first part is unbundling these wires and looking at where they go. Fortunately, with it, you actually do get some pretty clear instructions. From the gyro, you actually have 3 separate discrete wire sets coming out of it. The first one, relatively big female plug, is the one that your servo is going to actually plug into, and that's where it's going to control that. This 3-wire one, this is the one that's actually going to replace the servo in your channel 1 on the controller. And then lastly, the plug with just 1 wire on it. That is your signal wire telling you how, from your controller, telling the gyro how much gain you want to give it. This gyro does do a -100, 0, all the way up to +100. And that typically will go in your channel 3. I believe on this controller, I'm going to actually be using channel 6 because that's one of these discrete controls up here. You don't want this on something like a button or even one of these switches down here, multi-position switch. You want it on a channel that you actually have discrete control over. So just like I said, the big wire, it goes to the servo wire. The 3-wire plug, standard size, goes to channel 1, and I am putting this individual plug here into channel 6. Now the only thing left to do now is to actually mount this gyro itself, which I'll probably mount it down here on this base, just using some simple double-sided tape. With all that in, my controller is on. I'm going to turn the car on. I get a flashing, and then that is the gyro initializing. I am then in a solid light, which says that it is plugged in here. It's recognizing a signal from the 6th channel, and that it is in operation mode. So we should be able to, cross our fingers, if we pick up the rear of the car to see if your gyro is working, you can move the rear of the car back and forth. Now, one of the things you're going to want to watch is you want the front wheels to counter steer compared to where the rear is going. So you want it to turn with it. So if I move this towards me, this should turn towards me also. And it didn't. You see that it actually turned against me. Watch it, we'll do it the other way. So what that's going to do, that means the gyro is currently working backwards. Now you can do one of 2 things in order to solve it. You can actually physically just turn the gyro 180 degrees around. It doesn't know which side's the front or rear of the car. It just knows that there's movement. But the other thing that you have is right here on this, it provides you with this little tool, and it has a little switch here where you can actually reverse everything. All right, it is reversed. Let's see what happens. Look at that. Now as I come this way, the front turns in and counter steers just like you would like it to do to help you catch that drift. All right, that's great. And one thing I also need to do, the second switch on here is analog or digital. This is a digital gyro servo, so I need to switch that over to digital. The next thing that we're going to look at is actually the gyro gain itself. So again, I'm going to control this from this little potentiometer here on the top of the controller. It has a 0 point. You can actually feel a little notch when it gets to the 0 point. And at that point, the gyro is actually turned off. So again, you can tell that I am controlling it from the controller because I can turn it to 0 here, then you can see that the gyro doesn't work. Now, one thing I'm curious about is if I turn it clockwise, the gyro works, steering is fast. Now, if I turn it counterclockwise, gyro works, steering is fast. So I don't know, I'm trying to tell if there's actually a difference between positive and negative values on this as far as this gyro goes, and it doesn't appear that there is any difference. Some gyros, like the Futaba, actually behave differently depending on that positive or negative setting that you give them. Now at this point, there's nothing left to do except drive the car. Now as you do drive it for the first time with this gyro in it, you will have to work on how much gain can you get away with. This gyro does not have any of the smart features like a slow return or a Yokomo assist mode that'll dampen out any gyro wobble. So my expectation is that as we drive it the first time, I'm gonna get a lot of gyro wobble. So we're just gonna have to give that a test and see. If the gyro is wobbling around a lot on you, all you can do is just start backing off the amount of total gain that you have. That's one of the biggest benefits of running those Yokomos or those Futaba gyros, is you can run really high gain without all that wobble because they have those features. That's what you pay that extra money for. But let's get this thing to a track and see how it does. We're back. We've driven this AGFRC Gyro in the drift car, and I know that I've handicapped the gyro a little bit by using this Dumbo RC controller. But with all that being said, the control just really wasn't there with it. I was really surprised you could actually crank the gyro gain all the way up, and even with that, you never get any gyro wobble out of it. And what that told me is, that was one piece of the story that says this gyro just isn't very sensitive. All right, and with drifting, you have to have a precision sensitive gyro. You just really do, if you're going to get the maximum performance out of them. And this one just isn't there. If I can crank a gyro out at 100 and it doesn't wobble like that, okay, great. But I need to have really smooth driving with it also, and it just wasn't there. The other thing that I noticed was I could drift the car as long as I was gentle with it. Okay, and so what that means is low angle, not a big crazy angle going into the corners and mid corner, anything like that, and then nothing aggressive, no real snappy entries. If I did anything like that, it's like the gyro couldn't keep up, and I was basically just manually driving it, which means I was pretty much spinning out mostly. And so what it feels like, the gyro works, but that the gyro only has maybe a certain angle with which it works. And so I could get into a corner and it would work in that angle, but when I got to really extreme angles with the car, it's like it stopped working as well. Really, it makes me wonder, on the top of this gyro, it says drag racing gyro. And I think for that kind of a purpose, maybe for a basher, maybe, if someone really wanted to use it in that kind of aspect, it would work fine. You can put it in there. You're not going to get any steering wobble from your servo. Like, everything's going to be fine. But calling this an RC gyro that's good enough for drift, it just really, really isn't. It really just isn't. And the price is not so much cheaper than like a really good quality gyro like the Yokomo V4 that it's not worth it. Like, the performance gap is so big that you need to buy the better gyro. And so still to date, my two favorite are the Futaba GYD450, which is what I run in almost all my vehicles, and the Yokomo DP302 V4, which I also have and have tuned and have enjoyed. So I like both of those. The Futaba is starting to get a little bit harder to get a hold of. They've upgraded to the 550 from the 450, and the 550 is almost too smart. You have to have other stuff to go along with it to really unlock its full performance. And I've seen a lot of folks who have had issues getting those started and getting those running, which means it's not really going to be for a beginner. It's going to be more for a more advanced user that already has a lot of really good electronics and is not trying to cut corners and save 40 bucks or whatever on their gyro. So AGFRC Gyro, not for drifting. I'll leave a link to it down below in case you are doing drag racing or anything else like that. I'm also going to leave a link, if I can find one, to the GYD 450, but definitely to the Yokomo Gyro, and you should get one of those instead if you're looking to do rear-wheel drive RC drifting. So I hope this was useful for you. Maybe I just saved you from buying a gyro that you shouldn't be buying, or maybe you don't need one of those fancy ones for what you're using, like drag racing or something, and you just can save some money. So let me know down in the comments if this was helpful for you. I always appreciate that feedback. It's good to let me know, and we will see you in the next video. I'll leave some drifting videos over here as we leave. You can have some fun with some of those. Thank you, and goodbye.